Hello and welcome to the second scenario playthrough for Wing Leader Eagles 1943-45 by GMT, and the designers Lee Brimacombe Wood. We did the first scenario and an intro, quite a long video. Trying to think if I could shrink these scenarios down into one video. So managed at the first attempt, although it was quite long. Not sure with this following scenario I'll be able to put it all in one video. It's quite a lot bigger. There's a lot more aircraft involved. But anyway, we'll see how we go on that. And I might split it up into maybe a few videos rather than just one. So just before we start, just referring back to the last video I did, there was a couple of mistakes, and they were quite big ones actually, kindly pointed out by one of the attendees on the watchers, subscribers, which was very good of them. And the issue was to do with ammunition mainly, and so there is ammo rules in the game, and after an aircraft fires, it automatically gets an ammo depleted marker, which looks like an ammo low marker, which looks like this, and when it fires again it gets an ammo depleted marker on the other side. Now this affects the capabilities in combat. It doesn't stop combat completely. However, it leads it on to the other mistake, which was in the combats I was doing against the kamikaze bombers, I was rolling for cohesion checks on the bombers, but I wasn't doing on fighters. And if you're in combat, you take a cohesion check, even if you didn't take a loss or a straggler or anything. So I forgot to do that. And the ammo markers are modifiers on those cohesion checks. And the cohesion checks, we didn't really see one actually happening, but the cohesion checks, you become depleted, or disrupted, sorry. And they're first, it's another counter you place on, and this is the disrupted counter. And then if you suffer another effect, you get a broken counter. And with broken counters, it effectively means that it's end of battle for that unit, that formation, or that squadron, and it has to head off the board, really. So it's the bombers do carry on, but certainly for fighters. So there's a cascade effect, if you like, as you're using your aircraft, that they will become disrupted, broken, they will become low on ammo, so they'll become quite quickly not as efficient as they were, and will eventually actually just break and run for home, and we didn't do that. So apologies for that. I will definitely include it in this scenario. So yeah, without further ado, so we're looking at Operation Meridian 1. This is the scenario sheet here. So this is scenario E19, so it's actually later in the booklet, the Eagles booklet, but from Meridian Counterattack, which is E12. However, it is chronologically earlier, 5 days earlier. So this is 5 days earlier from the previous scenario. So this scenario is about a British carrier-borne aircraft in 1945 attacking oil refineries in Sumatra in the Dutch East Indies. And as a result of this attack, there is then the counterattack, which was the first playthrough, where kamikaze was sent against the carriers. So if you like, the chronology is the other way around, but it is correct in the scenario sequence in the booklet. and hopefully after this we'll be able to play what's known as Operation Meridian 2, which is E20, and that is very similar to this. It's another attack by the British carrier-borne aircraft. However, that happens after the counterattack, i.e. the first scenario. So my videos will be 1, 2 and 3. The actual chronological order was 2, 1 and 3, if you like. So just clearing that up. So just to see what we actually have here. So to do that we'll have to zoom in a bit, because there's quite a wide dispersal of aircraft on this board, unlike everything which was crammed into the sort of the bottom right hand of the map in the previous one. Okay, so on the British side we have a bomber force. This is a bomber force of 4 Avenger, normally torpedo bombers, but in here they're doing bombing, not quite dive bombing, but what's known as steep angle bombing. So they're carrying our bombs here, the markers are on here. They're being led by a Firefly squadron. That's the British carrier-borne late war aircraft, which is doing a sweep mission, so we haven't met that before. Above is a pair of Hellcat squadrons, which are doing escort missions. There is also another Corsair squadron here, which is also doing an escort mission. And then right up here we have another 2 Corsair squadrons which are doing sweep missions. So we haven't met escort and we haven't met sweep before. Sweep is almost like it's like an intercept, but without any expectation of meeting any opposition. So a sweep mission will effectively move across the board to a certain point, may then linger, and then will head back across the board. It's attempting to sweep the skies of any enemy planes. So it's a fighter. It's a fighter order, and there is also an exception to that, is that sweep fighters can also strafe as well, so they can dive onto a target and actually strafe. This is possibly what we're going to be doing with these Fireflies, because they have a very good firepower on them. They have 20mm cannons, whereas all the other fighters are just armed with machine guns. And I think the idea is that they will sweep in and strafe the anti-aircraft defences on the refineries before the bombers go in. That's the idea anyway. So the escorts. So the escorts are all about actually being in the vicinity of the bomber stream, the bombers that they're escorting, and they will again move with the bombers to a certain point, and then, you know, if the bombers move off once they've done their bombing, then they'll move off with them. Now, escorts can become sweep orders. They can switch, and the way to do that is an escort fighter will always look out for the enemy. It will also try and tally, a bit like the C-fires were doing in the last scenario, but it's got an extra ability to spot the enemy as well, and that if it doesn't see the enemy and tally, then if an enemy fighter attempts to enter a space with one of the bombers, it has the ability to do a reaction roll, and you roll reaction to see if the escort had actually clocked those attackers coming in, and effectively mixes it up with them instead. Now, after you've had that there's been some interaction with the enemy, from that point on you can switch to a sweep. Also, sweep fighters which are next to bombers can actually switch to escort. So sweep and escort have a bit of a close relationship here. So as you can see in the last scenario, we just had a few flights. They weren't full squadrons, whereas here we've got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 squadrons, and that's just on the Allied side. So yeah, we've got a lot of planes flying about here. I also see we have a veteran here, which was forced by scenario rules to be one of the Avenger squadrons. So we put him on the front, and we have another veteran up here, which is the Hellcat fighter here. Last thing, which is slightly off. We also have a green squadron, which we've assigned to one of the other Avengers. And then the other thing is just up here, we see at these Corsairs here, one of them has what's known as a wing leader counter. So let's look at that. So what that means is those pair of Corsairs are in a wing. So they're in a formation themselves, and they stick together until there's a tally happening, and then they can break up. Also, the wing leader, as in this squadron here, if it tallies an aircraft, it can pass that tally on. And also, if somebody else in the wing tallies an aircraft, then it can be passed through them to other aircraft. So they kind of work as a team up until, you know, the tally happens, and it's quite useful. So that's the British side, and just looking at the data cards. Actually, here I've got them here. So we have the Hellcat. And also the Corsair, and I will say that even though those two aircraft, let me zoom out here. Here we go, the Hellcat and the Corsair. Even though they are very, very different aircraft, actually their statistics are pretty much identical. So the speed and turn and climb stats are pretty much identical. There is a slight difference, but not much, just on altitude. Brakes, and then they have a firepower of 2. So those are the Hellcats and Corsairs. The Firefly, which I will just grab, is it's actually a 2-seater fighter. It's actually a heavy fighter, and interestingly, of course, the speed and the turn is actually a lot less. However, the one thing that makes a Firefly kind of stand out here is the fact that it's got a firepower of 3. Now that's quite significant. That's quite a high firepower for a fighter, and I think again that's the 4 20mm cannons it's got. So that's going to be useful on the strafing anyway. Never mind the fighter opposition. So a slower but heavily armed fighter there, and we then also have the Avenger, which are slower again, and of course they are also hampered by having bombs. They have a defense of 0, so not a great defense here against fighter attack. So they're quite vulnerable here. But we aren't using torpedoes, of course, here. We'll be using the bomb value, which is up here. So yeah, that's the Avengers. And now we can go and look at the Japanese. Right, so for the Japanese, first up, looking down here, this is the refinery area here. You see there are 2 refinery hexes with no defences themselves, but they also have light flak units with them, and then there's a heavy flak unit which is just ahead of them. They're also protected by barrage balloons here, and barrage balloons effectively they have a permanent flak zone from their space downwards, so there's actually quite a lot of anti-aircraft defence here to get through, and something that maybe the Fireflies, if they're strafing, have to be careful with them. So that's the target, if you like. And then we have some wispy cloud here, which is a hindrance of 1. So I'll add 1, 2, tally dice rolls if you're looking through. And then we get to the aircraft. So we have 4 squadrons here, 2 different types of aircraft. So here we have the Ki-44s, which are the Shoki, or known as Tojos by the Allied code name. So these are sort of heavy fighters. They look a bit like Thunderbolts, really, the P-47s. The firepower, though, is not great. Here's the actual data card. As you see, pretty fast. Turn okay, but they only have a firepower of 1. So, yeah, useful fighters. So looking at the other fighters here, we have another 2 squadrons. These are Ki-43. These are Hayabusa. Known as Oscars, and very similar, although the speed and turn values are swapped. And again, firepower not brilliant, only a 1. And that's what they're facing initially. And these are on intercept. Orders, and these here are the vector counters. So this is in lieu of any tallies. These 2 are where these 2 are heading, and these 2 up here where these 2 are heading. There is another set of fighters who don't appear yet. They appear on turn 6, and these are a squadron and a flight of Ki-45s. So these are Tojo, which are Nix, known as Nix. These are twin engine fighters. And let's quickly look at their card here. So slower, although not completely slow. They have slightly better protection than the others. They also have a defense, which is something. Again, the firepower is only 1. So that's the Japanese forces. Also behind them, actually, as a special rule, there is what's known as a GCI, a ground control intercept. This is effectively a radar controller, which is somewhere, and that's actually scanning the radar, scanning the airspace, and will be able to redirect those vectors. You can roll to redirect the vectors to wherever you like as part of that ground controlled intercept. That's it's also got a bonus on tallying as well, I believe. So that's on the Japanese side. The British don't have anything like that. The other thing to note is that the IDs of all the Japanese units are alerted because they're on intercept. Intercept is usually alerted because you're trying to find something, something's out there. So they're on the watch for things. Conversely, the British are unalerted, so they're not necessarily expecting anything. And this does, if we zoom in maybe to the closest to the fly, you will see that the ID has unalert on it. So they have a disadvantage there. But as you can see, the numbers are quite a disparity here. And that's where we are for this scenario. The couple of other things to talk about is that the direct flak attacks get a -1 modifier, and that will be these flak units here. I forgot, on the Japanese side there is 1 veteran squadron and also 2 experts. So we've done that. There is also 2 greens, and what I've done, possibly slightly gamily, is to make the Toryus the green units. So when they come in later, So we start with our best guys on the Japanese side. Also, the Japanese squadrons has what's known as tactical flexibility. This means that squadrons can split up into two formations, and that's for any of them. On the British side, they can't do that, with the exception of a Corsair squadron can split into two flights, and that's the maximum that can happen. I think that's pretty much it. I did mention, I think before, that the Avengers are able to do steep angle dive bombing attacks, which is unusual. You either need to be a dive bomber, or you need to have that capability on your card as a fighter bomber. But apparently, due to special training, the Avengers can do that, and I think they will do that. And we'll go through that when we go through to the bombing routine, presuming that they actually get to the target. But that's where we are, so we can start the scenario. Okay, so turn one. We have a setup phase, which we don't need to do anything because there's no entering squadrons this turn. Tally phase. Now tallying pretty much 6 spaces is the maximum, and we're nowhere near that at the moment, so nobody's actually going to see each other on this turn one. So we can basically skip that. Movement phase, the squadrons move. So the move order is dogfights, escorts, bombers, unalerted fighters, and then alerted fighters. So there are no dogfights at the moment. A dogfight is when there's a continuing battle between aircraft fighters in a particular space. We haven't seen that yet. So escorts move first. So the bombers and their escorts will move too. And so we are basically going to shuffle everybody up too. So I'll just do that with the bombers and the escorts, and actually the bombers come straight afterwards, so I'll then do those as well. Right, we've done that, and next up is the unalerted fighters. So that will be everything on the British side that's remaining. All the sweep units will move, and again they move too. So the sweep units are here, and the Firefly. So pretty much the British are moving as a group, 2 movement points a turn, so 2 spaces as it is. Yeah, so that's those done, and now we have the alerted fighters. So the alerted fighters would be the Japanese, and they will move towards their vectors. So I think we'll keep for the same altitude for the moment. Actually, they will move another space, 3 spaces for alerted fighters. So these move on. Okay, and then we have a combat phase, which we don't really have because there is no combat, and finally an administrative phase. The 2 things we could do here is we can change the vectors for the Japanese fighters. Then also what we can do is we can change escorts into sweep units. I don't think we want to do that just at the moment, so yeah, we'll leave both of those. I think we're quite happy. Yeah, maybe we might want to try to move this vector marker. Yeah, so under ground control intercept control, which all the Japanese are in the scenario, you need to roll less than the GCI value. The GCI value on this scenario is 4. So we need to roll 4 or less. Sorry, that's actually equal to or greater than 4. So it's a 50-50 chance. Let's organise the dice. And here we go. So yeah, a 5 is good enough. So we can change that K vector. And maybe we might drop it possibly to there, I think. The rest is fine. The idea, I think, with the Japanese is I'm going to try and get the front squadrons to engage the escorts and the sweep, and the back squadrons to try to get to the bombers. That's what I'm going to try and do here. Let's see if that works. Right, we don't want to change any escorts to sweep, so that's the first turn, and we're on to the second turn. So again, setup phase, nothing to set up. Don't do anything with that until turn 6 when some more Japanese fighters come on. And so we're on to the tally phase. So where are we now? We do have some proximity here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there is a possibility of the Corsair and the Shoki, the Tojo squadron, being able to see each other. Yep. So let's do some rolling here, I think. Right. So for the Japanese to tally, I think it's the Japanese rolling first. Who has initiative here? Yes, I think it's the Japanese. So, excuse me. So we have 5 hexes distance, and oops, we haven't moved the displays over. There's a little bit of a hump here. So, oh. 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, that's correct. So there's 5 there. So we need to roll greater than. So it's a 6, but it's +1 because it's a veteran. So it's a 5 or a 6, and we got a 6. So there is a tally here. So tally from P, which is we suddenly get rid of the vector marker and we put the tally marker on the display here. And we'll see if I believe all the Japanese are on the same radio net. Yeah. So therefore we might be able to get him to tally as well. 4, 5, 6, because he gets a bonus. So there was another +1 because of the GCI actually. So so his is a base 6, +1 for the GCI, or +1 for the target tally by friendly squadron in the same radio net. So it's just a +1. So it's 6 +1 on the dice. So he's not veteran, so he needs a 6. That's a 4, so no, he doesn't see it. So you have the 1 tally. On the American side, it's a straight roll for 5. It's not a veteran, and they are unalerted, so that doesn't make any difference. And we get a 2, so still unalerted. The Corsair hasn't clocked the Tojo. Okay, so that's basically the extent of our tally phase. Nothing else to do really. So we're on to the movement phase, and again we get escorts, then bombers. So I think we can do them together for the moment. So let's move these. escorts coming across 2 hexes, and the Avengers moving across 2 hexes, and our Corsair here moving over 2 hexes as well. Then we get the sweep, so the Firefly heads further in, and yes, our Corsairs move. Remember, they're not aware of the Japanese quite yet. Okay, that's pretty much all the British moves, isn't it, really? So they're all done. So let's just reorganise our there we go. Right, so it's very quickly going to get into a bit of a bun fight here, isn't it? So now it's on to alerted fighters. So I'm going to move these guys. Effectively, initiative order is highest to lowest. So the lowest is lowest to highest actually. So the lowest do move first. So these will move 3. And 1, 2, and I think we'll go 3. Yeah. Yep, 3 to there with a dive marker to get to that level. Yeah, that actually gives it 1 more movement point, so we move on to there. Right, so they're almost at their vectors. Okay, and then here. So the one that's untallied will just move forward 1, 2, 3 to its vector. However, this moves 3, but of course it can attack the Corsair, which I think it will do. So 1, 2, and then dive here. Onto the Corsair. And we pick up a +1 dive here as well. Okay, so yeah, that's our movement, and so we then go on to the combat phase, of which we have 1 combat, and that will be, I'm just thinking actually, did I want to split this KI-44 squadron up? Actually, probably not at the moment. I might want to split this guy up, but not him. Yeah, we'll keep it together for the moment. So on the combat phase, we'll just move that across to the battle display. So this is the situation. We've got the Corsair here coming in completely oblivious here, and the KI-44 diving in. Because it was diving in, it actually had 4 movement points, and what we can do is the previous space, he can spend 2 movement points, an extra movement point in to make it 3, and then dive for the 4th, and that gives him an out of the sun position, and therefore is able to bounce the defender. That gives him a attacker dice roll modifier. So looking at the speed ratings, so they are both 6. However, we've got +1 speed from the dive here, so the combat differential is +1 for that. Also, this squadron is veteran and this one isn't, so that's a +2. So it's +2 -2 on the combat differential here, and we're using speed as opposed to turn capability. The Tojo is best at speed attacks. Just look quickly at the data card. So yeah, so it's a 6. We're at altitude 11 at the moment, so 6 is the best, and the Corsair is 6 as well. If I just show that up here, so 6 as well, 5 to 15. So yeah, so we've got a +2, -2, and then looking at the dice roll modifiers, it is there is a bounce, so a +1, and the attacker has an expert, which is that one as well. So we've got +2 on the dice roll, and the defender, I don't believe has anything. No. So yes, that's it. So it's +2, +2. So +2 column, +2 modifier on the Japanese side. It's -2, 0 for on the British side. So we'll roll the dice for the Japanese, and we'll get a 6 +2 is 8. 8 on the +2 column is a 2 hit, and then we'll do the British side. On the -2 column, we also get an 8, and an 8 on -2 is actually a hit, so does get a hit back. Oh, actually, I got that slightly wrong. Because the defender is being bounced, he gets a -1, so that is actually a -1 to the dice. It's on a 7, and that is a miss. So so no hits back from the Corsair. But we have 2 hits on the Corsair. So the Corsair's protection is 4-5, and the firepower of the Shoki is just a 1. So but we have an expert. So for each dice roll, we modify a +1 for the expert, and +1 for the firepower. So it's a dice with +2 on for each hit, and let's just roll on that. So we get a 5 going to a 7. That's bigger than 4 or 5, so that is actually a loss. And we can mark that. Mark that here, and we roll again. Same deal, +2, and that's a 4, 5, 6. That's another loss. So 2 losses there on the lead as well. Okay, and then we have cohesion table rolls for both. So for the Americans, we have 2 losses, so that's +2, and I think that's all. Yeah. So +2 on the dice. We roll 2 dice, and the British are looking for what is it? Sorry, it's -2 on the dice, and we're looking for as high as possible. So the 2 dice for the Corsair, we have a 9, which comes down to a 7, which is no cohesion loss. So they're still okay, even though two planes have dropped out of the sky. And we do roll for the Shoki as well. There's no loss there. It's a veteran squadron, so it's a +1, and yeah, that's it. Yeah, just a +1 to the dice, I believe. Oh, and we get a 12, so they're quite happy with it. What we then do is we get our ammo, low ammo markers, and place those. Right, so we're back as we were on the main map, and we can put the low ammo markers onto the 2 aircraft here. We just need to adjust these markers as well, and yeah, that's the combat phase. and I think pretty much all hell's going to break loose next turn. Administrative phase from here. Do we want to change vectors? I think, shall we? Yeah, I think these guys are not quite going to see them yet. I think we'll leave them as they are with the GCR. And do we switch sweep to escort? Again, I'm not convinced of that. I think what I might do next turn, looking at it, is we're coming up to the wispy cloud, and it might be an idea to put the bombers inside the cloud. I think that might be an idea. It might drop them an altitude. You can do that. You can change altitude by 1 level when you're on a bombing run. Okay, so that's turn 2, and we're going to be now on to turn 3. So I was thinking again of just splitting this up a little bit. So I think I'll probably hold it there on this video, and then carry on with turn 3 on the next video. So hope you enjoyed watching so far, and see the next video for turn 3. But until then, thanks for watching.